Feed tubes can become dirty when debris from the fed fasteners and/or the atmosphere starts to build up on the inside of the feed tube. This may restrict the flow of the fasteners enough to result in missed installations. When this starts to happen, or the tube is visibly soiled, it should be replaced. Warning: before making any repairs or adjustments, make sure power-driven machinery is completely stopped and disconnected from its power supplies, compressed air and electricity, and you are wearing the appropriate personal protective equipment. For this procedure, you will need a set of metric Allen wrenches, measuring tape, a tube cutter, and a small adjustable wrench. To clear fasteners from the feed tube, first turn the feed bowl power switch to the off position. If your machine is not equipped with a feed bowl power switch, you may turn the feeder bowl rate knob to the 0 or off position. If your machine is equipped with a touchscreen HMI, from the main page, select Manual Mode. From the Manual Mode screen, you can toggle the feeder from on to off. Turn the Operation Mode switch to the manual position. For HMI-equipped machines, select Manual Mode from the main page. Clear the shuttle by performing a manual insertion or by purging the air from the system and allowing the retraction mechanism to drop down. Move the escapement slide to the left so that the through hole on the escapement slide is directly below the feed tube bushing. Temporarily re-enable your air supply if purged in the last step. Press the Manual Shuttle button or the Activate Manual Shuttle button on the HMI. This will allow most of the fasteners to exit the feed tube, but some fasteners may remain. It is recommended these are caught with a container held under the orientation head. Be sure to keep clear of the front of the orientation head to avoid injury, as the shuttle will protrude during this operation. Once the majority of fasteners have exited the feed tube, slide the escapement slide back to the right. Make sure the machinery is completely stopped and disconnected from its power supplies before continuing. The feed tube can now be removed from the feed tube retainer. This may require you to remove the guard by removing the 9 socket head cap screws and 4 straps if there is not enough room to fit your hand. Note that the feed tube is retained at both the feeder bowl and the orientation head. To remove a feed tube from a push-to-connect style fitting, push in the retaining mechanism and pull the feed tube out. To remove a tube from a compression style fitting, use a small adjustable wrench to loosen the fitting enough that the tube slides out freely. Do not fully remove the fitting yet, as it contains an O-ring. Measure the length of the feed tube removed from the machine with a measuring tape. Using a purpose-made tubing cutter, cut the same length off the new roll of feed tube. Ensure the ends are perpendicular to the sides. If the inside diameter appears to have any burrs, you may use a sharp countersink by hand to remove these, creating a slight bevel. To install a feed tube into a push-to-connect fitting, press the feed tube down into the fitting. Ensure the tubing seats all the way down into the counterbore of the feed tube bushing, or the fasteners may jam. If the feed tube fails to seat properly at either the feeder bowl or orientation head end, use your adjustable wrench to remove the fitting. Remove debris or fasteners that have become trapped inside the feed tube bushing using either a small pick or compressed air, then reinstall the fitting. To install a feed tube into a compression style fitting, remove the brass fitting from the feed tube bushing along with the O-ring. Slide the brass fitting over the end of the feed tube, followed by the O-ring. Insert the end of the feed tube into the feed tube bushing so that it is seated fully in the bottom of the counterbore. Screw the brass fitting in by hand until it bottoms on the O-ring. Use your adjustable wrench to slightly tighten the fitting so that the O-ring compresses around the feed tube and retains it. Give a light tug on the tube to ensure it is retained. If the fitting is overly tight, the feed tube will start to collapse and may restrict the flow of the fasteners. Replace the guard if it was previously removed. Should you experience any difficulty with this procedure, we are always available for telephone consultation.